The Idries Shah Foundation podcast. Practical Psychology for Today. Featuring the works of Idries Shah, voiced by David Alt. Welcome to the Idries Shah Foundation podcast. In this edition of the podcast, we present excerpts from Thinkers of the East by Idries Shah. This audio has been made available by the Idries Shah Foundation. Oil, water, cotton. A certain man who was fond of studying all kinds of systems of thought wrote to a dervish master, attributed to Abdulaziz of Mecca, asking whether he could talk to him in order to make comparisons. The dervish sent him a bottle with oil and water in it and a piece of cotton wick. Enclosed in the package was this letter. Dear friend, if you place the wick in the oil, you will get light when fire is applied to it. If you pour out the oil and put the wick in the water, you will get no light. If you shake up the oil and water and then place the wick in them, you will get spluttering and a going out. There is no need to carry out this experiment through words and visits, when it can be done with such simple materials as these. Syed Sabir Ali Shah. The Syed was asked, why did Sheikh Attar write Recapitulation of the Friends of God? He said, because the Quran was no longer being experienced, but was being expounded. And why did Maulana Rumi write the Masnavi? Because the recapitulation was not being read, but was being memorized. And who are the people who can interpret writings of the Sufis? Those who do not need what they contain. What are they called? You could call them a very special sort of grocer. A grocer is a man who has more provisions than he needs for himself, so he sells them to others. We call them the pirs, ancients, and murshids, guides. In Mecca. Junaid relates that he once saw a barber in Mecca shaving a rich man. A wandering dervish, he went up to the barber and asked him to shave him. The barber at once left his wealthy customer and shaved Junaid. Instead of asking for money, he gave him some. Junaid resolved inwardly that whatever he might be given in charity that day, he would take to the barber. Not long afterwards, someone came up to the dervish and handed him a bag of gold. Junaid hurried to the barber's shop and offered it to the barber. The barber said, have you no shame in offering payment for something done for the sake of God? Halkavi. They asked Halkavi, what behavior have you adopted during your life towards the people whom you have met in order to determine their qualities? He said, I have generally acted in a submissive and humble manner. Those who became aggressive in response to my humility, I avoided as soon as I could. Those who respected me because of the humility of my appearance, I shunned as quickly. The Journeys of Qazwini. Useful men, carrying on useful work, do not become angry if they are called useless. But the useless who imagine they are operating in a significant manner become greatly infuriated if this word is used about them. I visited, says Qazwini, one group of sincere enough Sufis. They practiced invocations and strummed music on strings. I listened to the discourses of eminent authorities and attended the festivals of the masters, living and dead. I donned the patched robe and begged from door to door, as recommended in the classics. I prayed, I fasted, and I gave charity. I learned the intricate gyrations and litanies, and took part in the stillness. I mastered the ability to contain my inner agitation. I learned how to erase my I and how to restore it, purged. Then I met the proof himself. The proof said to me, "What do you seek?" I said, "I seek the Master." The proof said, "Had you asked for more action, I would have given it to you. But as you desire truth, I shall conduct you to the truth." He conveyed me to the Master, and the Master taught me what all the outwardness which I had studied really meant. When I return to the world, none would listen, and the outwardness continues. As the Master predicted to me, it will continue until the end of time. Inconsistencies. A rare writing by Rafiq explains the purposeful reality behind outward inconsistency. Note well, he says, the people who express surprise at the inconsistencies which they find in dervish speech and action. Such people have not yet realized that the path is followed by effective means, not by sameness. If you find the externals and procedures of any tekia identical with any other, know that one of them at least is an imitation. The dervish who can only say the same thing to everyone at all times is not a teacher, felicitous one. Children always like the things which are always the same. Those who prize and understand rarities seek uniqueness, do they not? They do not seek sameness, but rather the reverse. Yet the shallow literalist acts and thinks like an undiscriminating infant, except that he insists upon being treated not as an infant, but as a connoisseur. A report by Kirmani. The Sufi monastery at Shishtut has a tekia hall with dazzlingly inlaid tiles of priceless worth. For nearly 300 years, sheikhs, emirs, sultans, and learned men flocked here to meditate and to sit with the master of the age. But he had his own circle and carried out his own exercises in a rectangular room which looked like a kitchen. That is why there is, in many a tekia, a spot known as the hearth. The Land of Truth. A certain man believed that the ordinary waking life, as people know it, could not possibly be complete. He sought the real teacher of the age. He read many books and joined many circles, and he heard the words and witnessed the deeds of one master after another. He carried out the commands and spiritual exercises which seemed to him to be most attractive. He became elated with some of his experiences. At other times he was confused, and he had no idea at all what this stage was, or where and when his search might end. This man was reviewing his behavior one day when he suddenly found himself near the house of a certain sage of high repute. In the garden of that house he encountered Hida, the secret guide who shows the way to truth. Hida took him to a place where he saw people in great distress and woe, and he asked who they were. "We are those who did not follow real teachings, who were not true to our undertakings, who revered self-appointed teachers," they said. Then the man was taken by Hida to a place where everyone was attractive and full of joy. He asked who they were. "We are those who did not follow the real signs of the way," they said. "But if you have ignored the signs, how can you be happy?" asked the traveller. "Because we chose happiness instead of truth," said the people, just as those who chose the self-appointed chose also misery. "But is happiness not the ideal of man?" asked the man. "The goal of man is truth. Truth is more than happiness. The man who has truth can have whatever mood he wishes, or none, they told him. We have pretended that truth is happiness and happiness truth, and people have believed us. Therefore you, too, have until now imagined that happiness must be the same as truth. But happiness makes you its prisoner, as does woe. Then the man found himself back in the garden with Hida beside him. I will grant you one desire, said Hida. I wish to know why I have failed in my search and how I can succeed in it, said the man. You have all but wasted your life, said Hida, because you have been a liar. Your lie has been in seeking personal gratification when you could have been seeking truth. And yet I came to the point where I found you, said the man, and that is something which happens to hardly anyone at all. And you met me, said Hida, because you had sufficient sincerity to desire truth for its own sake, just for an instant. It was that sincerity in that single instant which made me answer your call. Now the man felt an overwhelming desire to find truth, even if he lost himself. Hida, however, was starting to walk away, and the man began to run after him. You may not follow me, said Hida, because I am returning to the ordinary world, the world of lies, for that is where I have to be if I am to do my work. And when the man looked around him again, he realized that he was no longer in the garden of the sage, but standing in the land of truth. Language. Rifai was asked, why do you have to use so many analogies when you are talking of higher understanding? Can we not speak in plain language of such things? He said, this is an example of sublime ignorance producing correct information. If there were no people who did not know things, we would not be able to discern as to who is wise. Know, therefore, that language is itself an analogy. Every word and phrase, every letter is an analogy. In words we cannot speak of higher things directly, since no language encompasses higher things and not lower things as well. Almost an apple. Najrani said, if you say that you can nearly understand, you are talking nonsense. A theologian who liked this phrase asked, can you give us an equivalent of this in ordinary life? Certainly, said Najrani. It is equivalent to saying that something is almost an apple. This podcast is copyright 2016, the Idries Shah Foundation.